On this video, we're going to swap out the exhaust system on my Rd400. We're going to take off the tuned exhaust pipes, put on the stock pipes, do some polishing and restoration, and try to share some useful information, some good tips if you're doing this. And obviously, if you're doing it the other way, taking the stock exhaust, putting tuned pipes on, there might be some information on here that you can use to your advantage.
Going to be get the best two of these, and I think I can see right away which are the best two. Clean off the grease. I had put grease on these, wipe it off with some kerosene, take it and try to polish it up a little bit, get the two best headers. And I don't know if I have new gaskets, but if I don't, I'm going to order some and just put this together temporarily, because those gaskets that go up on the cylinders, when they leak, it makes a mess out of everything. So we have a real luxury today, because it's not raining or it's not in some way going to be a problem. I can make some room here to work. It'll make it easier for me. I can take the 650, put it outside, and get this in a position where I can work on it a lot more conveniently, because you can see how little room we have on a day when I have to work inside when it's raining out. So, but we're pretty much ready to pull out the old exhaust system. At first I have to go have a cup of coffee, of course. First step is I have the parts I'm going to clean up and polish. They need a lot of degreasing. I wiped them with wheel bearing grease, and it seems to have done the job. They don't look any worse than they did 6 years ago when I took this off and put on the other exhaust. Now I've got diesel fuel and a little spray bottle. I'm going to let this soak in for a minute or two. Finish up my coffee. In a minute this will take this right off, and we'll be down to where we can put this on. And then the bushing up here, I'm going to grease that bushing before I put it in with some nice clean wheel bearing grease. And obviously this is not a part you see, but there's no point putting it back on dirty when in 30 seconds or a minute I can have it clean. It's just my addiction to being clean and shiny. I don't know why. It's an addiction. Let's face the fact. Now I do remember back in the day that the first thing you would do if you bought an RD was take the center stand off, because it would always drag in corners. Well, because we have modern suspension now, we have a little bit better stuff than we had back in the 70s. And the bike, the trick is that the bike actually does sit higher, and we have bigger than stock tires on it, all contributing to the fact that you probably can get away with this, but we're going to find out right away. We'll find out the first time we go on a sporty ride with Luciano. Before it's nice and clean. I'm not sure of this. When I cleaned this out, I ran a paper towel through there, and you should see the goop that came out. But I'm just a little fussier than, well, I'm sure than I have to be. I just like to have this, that when you put it up on a center stand, it's a nice smooth thing. I'm sure this isn't going to hurt. Oh yeah, nice, nice, very nice. Now obviously you got to take, if you were going to replace this or take it off, you got to take the exhaust system off. So, and we'll get a new cotter pin. And I remember this spring being a bitch to get on. I guess things haven't changed over the years. Now these pieces have been, they're just covered with grease. And the whole purpose of covering them with grease, and that was 6 years ago, the thing I showed on yesterday's video, it worked perfectly. And you know, military stuff, they put them in cosmoline, which I guess is the same thing as grease. Now, a couple of things that I learned about when you take the grease off, these rags, just throw them out. The smell never goes away. Diesel fuel is one of the things that, and these towels, the rags, you get done with this, and you don't put your, you go to church riding outfit on. Now, I ought to run these on the polisher a little bit just to see if they'd clean up. They actually aren't rusty. I thought 6 years, but I do need to get some new gaskets. I hope I'm going to be able to get them. So once I get these cleaned up like this, now it's going to be a test of will they polish up, and then last thing is put some flits on them. And of course the best thing is just take a roll of paper towels, and when you're done, throw the towels away. Or if you use rags, throw them away too.
That actually cleaned up pretty decently. Not too disappointed about that. Now only a couple hours into the day, and it's a blue sky day. It's already up over 50 degrees. I didn't expect it to be this nice, but we're committed to doing this exhaust today. Final thing is just a nice coat of Flitz on this. Maybe keep it from rusting for 6 months like they advertise. I'm not sure. Now one down and one to go, and it always seems like the second one, of course, always goes a little bit faster than the first one, but they cleaned up nice, and it looks like that grease did a good job of protecting things. Now it's even more important on an evil twin type of project where, you know, at some point in time you want to swap the bike out to be a different bike, a different exhaust, a different seat. We've had every possible combination I could think of on this, and I have always thought of one of the other things I wanted to do, I never got around to do it yet, was to get another seat and tank, another tank. Let's see what I would need. I got a GS tank. I'd have to make a seat because I know the seat doesn't fit after you put the GS tank on. But that was originally what I was going to do at the beginning of the year, but the way it turned out didn't work out that way. Anyway, I'm surprised. This 6 years this thing has been sitting in hibernation, and the parts are cleaning up nice. And you know the reality, you just can't go down to a dealer and buy new parts. You've got to take care of the stuff you have, and as Mark Morgan so correctly says, when you find you have an old bike and you find parts available that are in decent shape, you got to be your own parts supplier. Now this one required an awful lot more cleanup. This had some real rust on it, but hopefully we've got most of it cleaned up, and boy, it's warmed up to be a beautiful, beautiful day out there. I was not expecting it to be this nice. But we have to go to Army with the war we have, as I always say. A little bit of elbow grease, a little bit of Flitz, a little bit of mother's polish. It's almost, yeah, definitely not quite brand new, but they're going to be nice and clean. I'm very glad that I meticulously saved all the rubber bushings, and I'll clean these up and all the washers, and because I'm sure these are difficult to find online. We'll clean this hardware up as a separate thing, but right now I want to get the grease off of the mufflers. We could just put that on later. This is going to be a separate thing. And the mufflers, of course, let's get this out of the way. The trick with getting the grease off is just let the diesel fuel soak in, and whatever, go do a cup of coffee or whatever. And I'm so happy that these are saved, because right now, if I wanted to buy an RD exhaust system, or every year these things go up in price and get harder and harder to find. So that's the whole thing in a nutshell, is if you do happen to have some of this stuff, you really don't want to let it go. It's sad to see, to me, that the dents and little imperfections that are in here now, there's really no way to get them out realistically, because we're already down through the chrome. But we can get a layer of protection on this, and a little bit, just make it a little bit nicer anyway. And I'm just totally convinced if there were a place locally or somewhere reasonably you could get things chromed like in the old days, yeah, but in our case, in this area of the country, there's no such thing. And I haven't found it anyway. And by the way, just for reference point, this Flitz buffing ball is just a great thing to have for everything, just for general cleaning. But the main thing is I wanted to put a layer of protection on there. I don't want to have to be dealing with more rust than I have right now.
Now, with one of these done, I think it's a good time for a little coffee break. And this is the first time this year we'll be able to have our coffee out by the pond. So that should be a little upgrade over having it in the cellar. Anyway, we've gone and done as much as we can with restoring these, bringing them back to as nice as we can. And I got to do the other one, but first I need a coffee break. Okay, one down and of course one to go. That's the hard part. We do need a coffee break though. So these parts are cleaning up nice. It's time consuming and it's dirty work, but the end result is putting it together then will be a piece of cake and it'll be enjoyable. It's not enjoyable when they're all greased up and dirty and filthy and everything. The second part always goes a little faster, and now I'm excited because less than an hour from now I'll be taking this all apart, putting these on. I know it should be a pretty straightforward thing getting them on. These have already been on the motorcycle, so shouldn't be any problem. We'll clean up the hardware, and every step of this is right on track. And the best thing is we're going to have an evil twin. By the end of the day, maybe even, we'll be having an evil twin. And to me, an evil twin is almost like buying a new motorcycle. It gives you a reason to have a new bike. It's going to sound different. It's going to run different. I'm not sure if we're going to have to spend a day or so jetting it, but if we do, of course, I'll put that on, make a separate video of it. And we want to get all this grease off. That's one of the things a lot of people, I'm sure, would say, oh, you're not going to see that. That's in the back. You never see that. It's on the bottom or something. Well, you know what? I just like having clean stuff, and when I'm working, it is an addiction of mine. I know there's people that are just saying, I can hear them, Wendy, you don't have to clean that. Don't worry about it. Well, I guess they don't know about being addicted. Okay, we're ready to pull that exhaust system off the bike. I've got to figure out how I want to get it jacked up off the ground so it's easy to work on. These parts this was a real time-consuming thing, but I think we got the result we want. We made the most out of the parts we have available. And one final thing before I clean off the table here and get into the clean part of the job. I'm going to clean this up the same way we cleaned up the parts. Go down by the buffing wheel, clean them up, make them as good as we can. It'll make putting it together a lot nicer. Now I've got to take the seat off to use the electric come along. I want to get the back end of the bike off the ground. This will just make it a little bit easier. That'll just make it easier to get underneath and get the bolts loosened. Getting this old exhaust system off, there's 6 bolts, springs, and this thing is really in need of a refurbish. When I looked at it really close out in the bright sunlight, it really needs a refurbish. And lucky for us, it's warming up out here pretty nice. That just makes it a little bit more pleasant doing this. Now, first thing is to get the springs off, and then the back bolt, and this will slide forward. Now, the nuts that hold this on are locking nuts, and I've double nutted them with the idea in mind to keep the vibration from loosening these, and it seems to have worked pretty well. And once we get this bolt off, a little tricky getting that in there. Okay. And then we slide this forward, and then I can get the headers off as a separate thing. Still not off. There we go. Okay, that's out, that's out, that's out. Okay, that's ready to... So it looks like the easiest way to do this, rather than break that seal, is just pull the whole exhaust off at one time. Now that sealer that I had used that worked for 6 years, it works so good that these headers are held in place. In fact, I'm going to put my foot under this so it doesn't drop down.
And I had thought about something that's really, it slipped by me in the past. I was always trying to think of some ceramic coating or plating or galvanizing or something that would make this, that it would just be impervious to all this corrosion and everything. But I have another idea. Oh, okay, so the gasket looks like it held up pretty well. Wow. Okay, now the whole exhaust comes off in one piece. But the next time I evil twin this back out, I had thought about something that I bet I'll talk to Dave Midgley about it. I bet he'll have a good answer for this. We had years ago, we had used Huntsman resin, the resin that we made the R1 exhaust, among other things, in a model airplane exhaust. And you can put dye in it. So I was thinking, bring this down to bare metal, sandblast it, and put a coat of Huntsman resin with black dye in it. That may be the answer. But this finish that they give you at the, you can see, this. I was just never happy with this. It's a shame because I've got two sets of these pipes. And it's the finish on them that's the killer. The finish is what is the deal breaker here. Anyway, we got 6 years out of them so far, and we'll see where this project winds up next time we work on this and evil twin it back out to a sport bike. Okay, next thing is the same thing. Pull the two bolts off the front, one bolt off the back, slide that header out. And we're ready to start cleaning up underneath there. And I'm sure there's plenty of grit and grime and road salt and everything. 6 years worth, in fact. Yeah, I'm thinking that Huntsman resin would be a good, because now that these are off the bike and I'll be driving it at least until the next evil twin, it'll give me a chance to experiment with that, and if it doesn't work, it's not a big deal. But to get this whole finish off, I think the most realistic thing is to just sandblast it down, bring it down a sandblaster, and that's probably what I'll do, and then put a coat of barbecue paint on so it isn't so disgusting. Anyway, you can see this is going to be a nice upgrade having that exhaust on there. And then this will give us a project probably for next winter that we'll see if that Huntsman resin with some black dye in it does the job. And that Huntsman resin has held up over the years, and we've got almost 30,000 miles on this bike, and at most of them with this exhaust system. So that Huntsman resin might be an answer for that. Plus, I'd be able to buff it out. That might be something cool. Anyway, I always am thinking one step ahead, and I want to clean up underneath there. That's why I jacked it up. Clean up as good as I can, and then get the center stand on. Without the exhaust in the way here. Very easy to do a cleanup, and actually underneath there wasn't as dirty as I thought it would be. I'm ready to put the center stand on. So this will just make it a little more convenient cleaning the back wheel and doing maintenance on the bike. But we will have to figure out if it's going to be a problem grounding out with the different suspension we have on it now. And I know getting that spring in is going to be a challenge. Okay, there we go. Look at that. Now the spring. This is going to be fun, I know, because this is going to butt up against the muffler. So I need to get that spring on next. Getting the spring on the kickstand, always a lot of fun. Now, because we don't have the pipes in place, oh, there we go. Wow. Wow, the man's a professional. Wow. Now, the reason it's easy, the pipes aren't here. If the pipes were here, you got to stretch it a lot more. So, maybe there's a lesson there. I don't know. I don't know what the lesson is, but there it is. Now, lucky for me, I have the last two gaskets, I think, on the planet. I usually have more of this stuff, but since I've been changing the exhaust system over the years, these are the last two on the planet. Now, I was really impressed that I have two of them left, because I've got every gasket on the planet, everything except RD exhaust gasket. So I know somewhere in the world I've got to get some stock on these. I have some extra ones for the front. Oh, yeah. But, wow. This is my lucky day. I didn't realize I was going to have two. Lucky for me. We have gaskets. I got to get to scrape the old gaskets out. Hardware's cleaned up. And we're ready to put things back together. Now the gaskets that came out of here, wow. They sealed up for 6 years. I guess that's not too bad. I want to clean this out a little bit before I put these back. Boy, when these things leak at the gasket in the front, it makes a mess. That's unbelievable. Not like a 4-stroke. Okay, so let's see if these fit perfectly. Oh yeah. El Perfecto. Couldn't be any better. Now the trick here is to make these just hand tight, because we have to have this floating while we wind up lining up the muffler. In fact, I've got to loosen this one up. Right. Now the point is I still need to be able to line these pipes up when I slide the muffler in. And so getting that, these are just hand tight now, not wrench tight, until everything lines up. Now the trick is to slide the muffler in and make that connection up there and get everything lined up and then tighten up the screws. Because we have the kickstand in here. There we go there. And we've got to push that down. Get that connection. And once you get that joint lined up, that is a bolt under here. Has to go in from the bottom. And now pretty much we'll be able to go around, and especially on the header, torque them down equally. Try to compress that gasket nice and smooth. And then we'll actually have one side on then. Now it's really good practice to heat cycle this, say after 2 or 3 rides. Just recheck the torque and make sure they're both equal, because if that gasket goes in cocked or you tighten one side and not the other side, it's best just to add about 5 pounds of torque each time and get that to seal up. Once it seals, you're home free all. This bottom bolt can be a real pain. Okay, that's good. And the only thing we have to do is tighten the back up. Everything else is solid. This has really been a crazy day. It's warmed up to where I'm almost ready to go get a pair of shorts. But we got one side of this on now. Everything's snugged up. This is the last piece. All the bolts are Loctited. This is the last one I've got to get tightened up. And then we got to go. There's a tentative problem that I knew I was going to have, but now I knew this was going to be an issue of putting a kickstand up. I need to have, I guess I can figure something out here. I guess we're going to find out. And the worst that'll happen is we won't have a side stand until I get one off eBay or somewhere. I don't imagine that's an impossible part to find. Okay, so one side's on. We're ready to go to the other side. Oh, it's pretty much the same for this side. And got the gasket area all cleaned out. That's good. Okay, got this. Get that put on. Now the final challenge is going to be that kickstand until I can get my hands on an eBay part or modify this part. I got to see what I can do here because we're running out of time here today. This took a whole day, longer than I normally work here, but I had a nice break with Karen, nice little walk around town, see the trees blooming, and I'm going to try to shoot a couple of pictures of this at the end of the day. Now I removed that little foot that was there, and I have to go through my inventory of junk here, see if I can come up with something, and I'm not sure I can, but in the worst of all worlds, I guess I'm not going to have a side stand for a few days. Now after improvising a part so I could put the kickstand up, I still wanted the original part, and a fella named Bill Manthe, Bill, thank you so much, had one, and he volunteered to send it to me, and he did. And Bill, thank you. It is still on the bike. Now I evil twin the bike back and forth, so I do need two kickstands, one for the tuned pipes and one for the stock muffler. So looking back to the days when I was racing RDs back in the 70s, and when I got this one for Valentine's Day, the one you see in the picture, I have been caught up in evil twinning them. For people that don't know what that is, I should have put this on earlier in the video. I like to change the bike up from time to time. I don't like to just put the bike out and ride it for 10 years in a row. I have 4 different exhaust systems for the bike. I've had them on. I have 2 different sets of carburetors, and I thought it's useful to know whether you go put the pipes on or take them off. It's pretty much the same amount of work, and it's not a 15-minute job for me. It was an all-day job. I have so many spare parts for this bike: shocks, wheels, forks, engine parts. And by the way, this is good information. That's a GS 1100E gas tank that fits right on an RD relatively easily if you're looking to make a big tank. Luciano has a really custom tank he got from India. We're going to have that on a video soon. But anyway, I hope this information was useful, and I hope you did enjoy the video. If you're new to our channel, we have a very, very eclectic channel. One of the new features we have now is some of the videos are grouped into groups that you can access all the videos for one category in one mouse click. And it should be very convenient and very handy. Just check out the feature on the main screen playlist. And thanks to everybody for supporting the channel. We appreciate your support, and it makes this channel possible with all the things we do. The painting, the wheels, the polishing. And please take a second or two and hit the like button. And thanks everyone for watching.